CJ Flyer back to find another YouTube video. We finally got it. EA Sports releasing the College Football 26 Dynasty and Team Builder Deep Dive. This was definitely the one I was anticipating the most, the one with the most information. This article is incredibly long. We're going to try to keep this as short as possible and just summarize some of the key points from this deep dive article and share with you what I believe are some of the best improvements to this mode. It's very clear from reading through this that EA has addressed some of the fans' concerns and requests. I'm very impressed, considering, you look at sports games in the past, over the past decade or two, and sometimes year to year, you don't really see much improvement, quality of life changes, and some of these are very small, minor, details, but they're gonna make things, it's gonna make the experience improve significantly, in my opinion. I'm very excited about this. So let's just go ahead and start off looking through. As you can see, they've added real coaches to the Dynasty mode. You can see now your coach appears on the right side of the menu screen in the Dynasty main menu. The format, the layout, everything looks pretty similar. They didn't, revamp the user interface a whole lot. It didn't really need to be revamped. Again, they just needed to make some small tweaks here or there, make some improvements to the mode. And first off, I'm really glad they added this new members tab, keep it separate from everything else. I always hated that the members button was right next to the retire button, so I'm glad that those are separated now. We go ahead and scroll down again. Real coaches, you can choose to use a real coach like Lane Kiffin, like Marcus Freeman, like Kirby Smart, or you can choose to create your own coach when you go ahead into Dynasty mode and start with your team. They added more apparel options. That was a complaint. Obviously, a minor thing, doesn't really affect the gameplay a whole lot, but there were only 2 clothing options for your coach in Dynasty in 25. Here in 26, you can see right here, they got plenty of different shirt styles, stances, your mannerisms. You can go ahead and change that too. So there you go. They added a little bit more customization to make the coaches a bit more unique. They increased the coach maximum level from 50 to 100. I know that was some people were complaining about that. And it was always, from my perspective, I felt like you should be able to customize that. If you don't want a maximum level, if you want to be able to get all the abilities in your dynasty, you should be allowed to. And in this case, it doesn't seem unlimited, but it seems like you're going to have more flexibility as far as how far you can progress. All of the coach archetypes, coach abilities, they're all still there. They're all still the same. A few tweaks. I think they added some new items that you can buy within the program builder archetype menu. That being said, something they did change, I guess, is, when you first start the mode, if you go ahead and scroll down, where do they have it? Did I completely miss it? When you're trying to choose between motivator, recruiter, or tactician as your base archetype. From there, in College Football 25, everything still costs the same. So even if you chose the recruiter base, it would unlock recruiter right away. But you could choose to spend all your points in tactician. You never needed to buy anything in recruiter, and it all costs the same. But in this case, in College Football 26, I guess if you were to choose the recruiter archetype to start out, the recruiter abilities will be cheaper to unlock. I don't think I read in here they're cheaper to unlock. I don't think that the cost of the individual perks changed, but just unlocking the perks within it's barrier to entry is lower if that's your base archetype, I guess is what I'm trying to say here, which I think is pretty nice. And then each of the real life coaches comes with their own unique set of coach archetype and ability combinations that is supposed to reflect how they are in real life. I guess, time will tell. We'll see when we get our hands on the game, but I think that's pretty nice that they added that little touch. The coach carousel, they said they made some intelligence tweaks to that. And like they said here, we've rebalanced the offer logic so that head coaches at top tier programs now receive better and more consistent job opportunities. Because that was another big complaint of College Football 25 is sometimes the job offers just weren't rolling in. You might have won 3-4 championships in a row with Ohio State and not a single offer from another big school. And in some cases, not even the head coaching offer, just be like a coordinator position. So they've changed the logic there. They've added some more detail to these menus. So that, the staff moves menus, it now shows their previous school and their new school. Again, just some small quality of life improvements that are really nice. Obviously, we've talked about this in a previous video. They've added the trophy room, and man, there's so much detail in this trophy room. There's so much you can unlock. All of the different conference championship trophies, all the different bowl game trophies. I mean, everything's in here. So for people that really like to play this game and run with multiple dynasties and try to unlock all the achievements, there's going to be a plethora of achievements to unlock. And this is across all the modes too. This isn't just Dynasty, but it's going to be a year-long thing if you're really looking to get all the trophies in the trophy room, I would imagine. So another thing that they've changed here, the transfer portal. One of the biggest complaints and one of my biggest gripes of the transfer portal is it's nothing like the real-life transfer portal as it is right now, where you've got, I mean, every team, every school's got at least one or two quote-unquote star players that are looking to change schools, or perhaps really good quality backups that don't think they're going to get any playing time anytime soon, that want to switch to a different school for a chance at the starting position. And now they say on average it's about 2,000 players in the portal per year on the default settings. So this is a huge improvement from the transfer portal last year. It doesn't look like they've added any kind of NIL cash payment, tactic features to the transfer portal. Like, it looks like it's pretty much the same logic and how recruiting works. It's pretty similar to 25 as far as what they've shown here in these menus. I don't see any option here to pay a recruit cash, but so all the logic, all the way recruiting works is very similar. It's just they've made some tweaks. More players are likely to transfer. They got more players in the transfer portal every year. And on top of that, you can see some quality of life improvements. Like right here on the recruiting transfer portal menu, they show your team needs. You don't have to press the right stick in to get team needs to figure out what positions you should be trying to recruit for next year. They have a quick summary right here at the top of the screen. So it saves you some time from having to pull up another menu, flipping back and forth. Took a lot of time, but now it's right here, right in front of your face as you're scrolling through the recruits and trying to figure out who you want to add to your recruiting board. Really nice to have that. Deal breakers. So as we know, when you're looking for recruits and also players that are actively on your roster, let's say that they have a deal breaker for playing time, and perhaps you recruited a quarterback, and during his freshman year, he was the starting quarterback. He was getting plenty of playing time. Next year, you got a better recruit. That quarterback is no longer, reaching the playing time threshold. He deal breaker is broken, and he chooses to transfer to another team. Or, for example, you already have a star quarterback. You're looking to recruit another quarterback prospect, but they don't meet the criteria for the deal breaker, and so the deal's broken. They're not interested in your school. So that's dynamic now. It's very possible that even especially as a smaller school, perhaps, you recruit a player that has a deal breaker for brand exposure or pro potential, and it could be like a grade level C. And then as that player turns, evolves into a star, he's putting up great stats, that deal breaker might change to a B or an A, and then they might be looking to transfer. So they're no longer static throughout their whole college career. They're dynamic based on situational, scenarios and stats and game results and all that. We'll see how it works when we actually play the game. But based on how they're talking about it, it sounds like there is going to be a lot of players looking to leave your school every year, and building a program from the ground up is going to be a whole lot more difficult on the default settings than it was in College Football 25. This game is going to be it's going to be a huge learning curve. Just reading through this, everything seems to be more difficult, and I'll explain how with some more features coming down here. Now you can customize the transfer portal. You can make it so players are less likely to want to transfer. You can set the max number of transfers from a team, because I could only imagine what would happen if you had 75% of your team try to transfer in the same season. That would be kind of crazy. So they've set that at least. So, if you were playing an online Dynasty and you want to keep teams more consistent, you're able to do that with the customizable settings. Now, again, quality of life improvements. We see here when you get to the final 2 schools, there's this final additional stretch called a recruiting battle, and you're kind of just duking it out with the other team. It requires more input on recruiting hours. So basically, it's an extension of the traditional recruiting time window that we had in College Football 25. When you get down to the final 2 schools, if they're very close, it's no longer just a toss-up. It comes down to this additional recruiting battle, which is going to make getting 5-star recruits, I would imagine, much more difficult. All right, location-based recruiting, that's another thing. Again, small quality of life improvements, and to make it a little bit more realistic, if a recruit lives farther away from your school, like let's say you are you're USC, you're coaching USC, and you're trying to recruit a player from Boston, well, your scheduled visit is going to cost 40 recruiting points or recruiting hours, whereas a school like UConn, I don't know, I don't know that UConn's going to beat out USC in a recruiting battle or just for a recruit in general, but just as an example, UConn being so close to Boston, that recruit visit's only going to cost you 10 recruiting hours as opposed to 40. So that's the idea. They said it could range from as low as 10 hours to as high as 40 hours as it was in College Football 25. So it's a nice touch, make things more realistic. Kind of make you strategize more as far as like what recruits you're going to go after. Are you going to, smaller schools probably have to go after more local recruits versus just, Hawaii trying to recruit someone from the East Coast, right? So more things you have to keep in mind, a little bit more realistic. And then something else I wanted to show here. So not only do we have the team needs window up above, but you can see here on the recruiting board screen, what's really nice is every week. For example, we know that in College Football 25, when you reach the top 8 schools remaining for a player, they would have hard sell and soft sell pitches locked. But once a recruit reaches the top 5 schools, they unlock those pitches. And so once a recruit goes from top 8 to top 5 within a given week advance, you'll see this little red dot in the corner here that indicates, hey, there's new recruiting actions that you can apply to this player. And then something else that's really nice is instead of having to go to the individual player to see what the current status is, as far as interest increasing or decreasing for your school, you now see this little green or red arrow next to the player's interest on this little recruiting board submenu on the left. So you no longer have to scroll to a player to see if your recruiting interest went up or down. You can tell, be like, okay, so I wasn't first on his list last week, but now I am this week. Or, oh, I was first last week and I dropped off. So good to have that little information there. Again, it's just quality of life improvements. It's really small things, but just adding them, it saves a lot of time, especially for people who are in online dynasties that are just trying to get through things quick to get the recruiting done. You're now able to see those little pieces of information without having to scroll down to the player to look at it. Really nice quality of life update. And then, again, with scouting and everything else, it all works pretty much the same. Recruiting battles, I already touched on this earlier, just the fact that it's down to the wire, you're down to the last 2 schools. It's a little added thing to the traditional recruiting timeline that was in College Football 25. Something else they've done, they've added more recruits in total to recruit from, the recruiting pool, to recruit from annually. But while they've increased the number of recruits, they've also decreased the number of elite prospects available. They said there's going to be fewer of them overall, and when it comes to athletes, they've reduced the quality of top-end athlete prospects and the quantity generated across each position, so it's going to be harder and more rare to find elite prospects. Everything we've read so far, some nice quality of life updates, and I'm also just thinking, man, recruiting's not going to be easy anymore. I mean, not that, it's depending on what school you were, it wasn't easy to begin with, but it's going to be difficult. Like, there's going to be a huge learning curve to this game. The menus, everything looks the same. The logic's pretty similar, but they've definitely changed up a few things here. They do show the likelihood, the success rate of a potential sway for a pitch. to add more green check marks to a player's interests here, as far as, hey, what matters the most to me. So you can see here this person successfully swayed this player to add a couple more green check marks to their list. So that's pretty nice. Something else I wanted to touch upon. Where is it? Yeah, player progression. So, okay, we already know that player abilities, from the gameplay deep dive, we know that player abilities are dynamic based on, throughout the game, so to speak, like in-game, based on player performance, based on injury and wear and tear, so on and so forth. But not only that, just leveling up abilities, it's going to require, there's more requirements, okay? So, last year, it would only require, one specific type of attribute upgrade to reach the minimum level for an ability, but this year they've added maybe for some abilities there's 2 or 3 requirements, like you can see here for Shifty. It's really tiny, I'm not sure if you can actually read it or not, but it says you need to upgrade your change of direction and your acceleration to upgrade to the silver level of Shifty, whereas in last year each ability was just associated with one attribute instead of 2 or more. So that's something new. In addition to that, player upgrading. In the past, you could not choose how a player spends their skill points. But this year, there is the way to manually upgrade the player. You can choose where they spend their skill points. However, there is a catch to that. Here we are. Here's the player rating system. They've added more blocks as well. They said to make the upgrades to the players to make it feel like more gradual progression instead of a quick jump from mediocre to star level talent. But yeah, when you manually progress a player, like if you choose where they put their skill points, like let's say you wanted the player to have maximum speed right away, that'll come with a progression nerf. Default is 25%. You can change that setting to be completely off or to be 100% to keep players from doing the manual progression. So that's going to be really interesting. I kind of don't like that there's a nerf on it. I think that's just trying to create balance for online dynasties. I'm not a huge fan, personally. I don't think it really needed a nerf. But that's just my opinion. Anyways, this is for every single player. So a lot of folks, they're not going to take the time to do the manual progression for every player. So there's still the auto progression feature in which the players themselves choose how they want to spend their skill points and upgrade, which is exactly how it worked in College Football 25. Something else that's different is dev traits. When it comes to normal, impact, star, elite dev traits, they are dynamic in the off season. So if you put up really good stats with a player throughout the season prior, there's the potential that their dev trait could increase from impact to star, or from star to elite. And dev traits kind of control how quickly a player progresses. So that's really nice. For once now, the way the player plays on the field will impact even more so how the player progresses and what overall that player is going to reach and at what point, and how likely they're going to be drafted into the NFL. So it's taking what's going on the field and trying to make it impact more of the progression, whereas in 25, it felt like player progression sometimes wasn't even really tied to player performance. It was more so just the game kind of just chose for you, So that's pretty nice. Training boosts, you can see they actually show you the number of attribute points each attribute increased. I know it's really small on the screen. Actually, let me go ahead and pull that up here. Yeah, so you can see a little bit better. Like speed +1, acceleration +1, agility +2, so it gives you a little bit more detail. Again, just a small thing, but it's a nice quality of life upgrade. Something else that's really huge that you should know about, position changes. I'm sure anyone that's played a ton of College Football 25 Dynasty knows about the position change cheese, so to speak, where you could take a wide receiver that has 90 plus speed. Perhaps it's like a deep threat wide receiver, and you were hoping when you recruited him that he would have the ability to get a platinum takeoff, but his acceleration is capped at 94 or 95. So you're not going to be able to get that, and you don't see him as a prime deep threat option in your pool of wide receivers, but he's still a great player. You could position change him to cornerback, to safety, and within a season, they'd have platinum house call ability. They'd have platinum robber potentially, depending on what, safety or cornerback. It's a cheesy way to get a really good quarterback or safety really quickly without having to recruit one that's at that position. So you could still do that in College Football 26, change a player from wide receiver to cornerback. However, it doesn't seem like it's a guarantee based on the way they're describing it here that player is going to have all those abilities, and their development will actually get stunted a little bit initially when they are transitioning from one position to another. So they're trying to eliminate the position change cheese, or at least, kind of mellow it down a little bit to make it much more realistic as far as changing a player's position from one to another, especially if they're going from offense to defense or going from a position like wide receiver to offensive lineman, right? Like that's obviously a totally different position. Whereas if you transition from like wide receiver to tight end, it's like, well, you still play a similar role. It's just there's more blocking involved, So all in all, and they'll show you here, like before you actually position change, which abilities you'll end up with. So this player here, if you were to change him to the Mike linebacker, these are the abilities they'd have. If you change them to the safety, they'd have these abilities. So you see they're pretty similar, but they end up losing grip breaker. And then if you were to change them to a defensive lineman, they would only have grip breaker. They'd lose aftershock, wrap up, blow up, hammer. So another nice quality of life update. Instead of just guessing and position changing, just trying to figure out what abilities they could end up with, you'll know what abilities they end up with before you actually do the position change, so that you don't have to risk potentially losing certain attributes or wasting time switching back and forth between multiple positions on a player. So the position change cheese is gone, or at least reduced, but at the same time, it's going to save you time because you can see right off the bat what abilities they'll end up with before you commit to a position change, which I think is just really nice touch that they're adding here. Wear and tear has also changed completely. The beginning of every season, each player is going to have their own like health bar, wear and tear bar, so to speak. And the more you get beat up every game, the more downs you play, the faster that bar is going to drop, especially if you take some hard hits. And once that bar hits 0 before the end of the season, that player's out. They're injured. They're done. And even if they don't reach 0, if your bar is really low to end the season, start of next season, every player starts with a full bar, but that bar may vary in length depending on the injury status or how much of the bar they used from the year prior. So you have to balance it. Again, you can always change wear and tear settings, customize that so that it's, you don't have to really deal with the wear and tear health bar, but it's just a new consideration when you're creating these teams, recruiting, and you might want 2 or 3 good running backs on your roster to kind of switch out if you're doing a run heavy offense. But at the same time, you have to consider the fact that some of these running backs might want to transfer, because transferring is more likely to happen, and deal breakers are dynamic. There's so much to consider now. It's going to be a lot more challenging, and even though this game looks the same, the user interface, the menus look very similar, it's going to be a whole new challenge. Like just reading through this article, again, Dynasty in College Football 26, I can already imagine is going to be much more difficult and much more realistic than Dynasty in College Football 25. Another quality of life update they added is saving stats. You can see all the national championship results from the entire history of college football. You can also see past Heisman winners. You can see past conference champions. They've added all of the historical stats, not all of them, but a majority of the high-level historical stats that you might want to look at, so that you no longer are guessing, hey, who in our online dynasty won the championship 3 years ago? I don't remember. So they have that now. And in addition to that, they added some tiebreaker logic to the conferences. That was another big deal. It was a lot of times people noticed it was just going based on alphabetical order. Now this year, first they look at the head-to-head record. If that doesn't work, if there's a tie there, or they didn't play head-to-head, I guess that would be, yeah, if they didn't play together, there wouldn't be a head-to-head. Then you look at common record against common conference champions, common conference opponents. And then if that's still tied, then you look at the college football playoff rankings. And then they kind of explain the logic there. Again, they got more stats, more advanced stats that you can look at, new positions and archetypes. They got formation subs. I've already talked about this in a previous video. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but basically if you want a quarterback to, a scrambler quarterback to be in for a more like option dominant formation versus one that's got 5 wide. Maybe you want your field general quarterback in for that particular formation. You can have that preset without having to manually change it in game. It saves a ton of time. So I'm glad they're adding that. They got protected opponents added for custom conferences. The college football playoff format is updated so that it's no longer the conference champions that get the bye weeks in the playoff bracket, but now it's just the top 4 ranked teams. That's something that's new in college football this year. More small quality of life updates. You can look at player stats directly from like the Heisman Trophy or other award ranking menus. So you no longer, it's like, in college football 25, you might see, Zachariah Branch is leading the way for the Heisman Trophy this year. And you want to look at his stats, but you have to back out of this screen, go into the roster menu, scroll to Georgia. Well, you don't have to do that anymore. You can just click triangle on the PlayStation or Y on the Xbox Series X or S. You can see the stats right from here. Saves a ton of time. Again, it's just the small things that make a huge difference. There's cross-play in Dynasty now. There wasn't cross-play in Online Dynasty last year. Dynamic time of day. I've already talked about that a little bit with the presentation deep dive. They have new pop-up menus or notifications when a record is broken. Again, just small little things that are really nice. And then one last thing, Team Builder. They've added generic stadiums, so you're not just copy and pasting a stadium from another school. And sometimes it'd be a bit obvious that it's a copy and paste. Generic stadiums, no prior team branding, no association with any other schools. And from my understanding, you can import teams from College Football 25 if you already created, Team Builder teams there. And just a lot more customization with, on the PC, editing the rosters, editing the player appearance directly on your desktop. Just much more customization, much more convenience. It looks like they really took College Football 25, took all the feedback everyone gave them, packaged it all together, went to, developing College Football 26. Yes, the user interface looks pretty much the same. And, first impression for a lot of folks are going to see this and be like, oh, this game's just a copy and paste. But it's really not. They've added so many new features. The game is going to play so much different as far as recruiting goes, as far as player progression goes, as far as building up your program goes. The challenge, there's going to be so much more challenge to this. Again, when you consider dynamic deal breakers, you consider players wanting playing time and more likely to transfer. You consider the wear and tear aspect. The wear and tear scares me, man. Rebuilding a program, it's going to be extremely difficult in College Football 26. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. We're going to be coming out with a ton of College Football 26 tutorial videos and walkthroughs to start in the first couple weeks of the game's release. I'm very excited to be bringing that to you. And just kind of a walkthrough, especially for folks that might not buy the game at release, kind of show, hey, this is what the game looks like. We're going to run some tests. This is what we're seeing here in Dynasty as far as recruiting goes. What's more likely to work versus not work. I'm excited. Let me know what you think in the comments down below and click one of the videos on your screen now for some more College Football 26 news.